Welcome to Last Generation Audio Magazine, your source for Bible-centered truth in a turbulent world. Here we share compelling articles that reveal God's love, expose deception, and prepare people for the soon return of Jesus. You are listening to Volume 36, Issue 1.
God's Arsenal. From the heights of their rocky fortress, the 400 men surveyed General Catinat's 22,000 soldiers and prayed for a miracle. By Betsy Mayer. It was a glorious spring morning in the Italian Alps. Warm winds had finally melted their impenetrable snowy fortresses. Foaming, singing water rushed down the streams. Over the passes from France came an army of 10,000 French soldiers. Up the valley of the Cisone came 12,000 Piedmontese soldiers to join them. Marshal Nicolas de Catinat, the most renowned French general of the time, reviewed his orders with satisfaction. Exterminate the heretics and maintain the Piedmont valleys for God and for King Louis XIV. Catinat had many wagons filled with food and ammunition. Hundreds of soldiers pushed and pulled strong cannons to batter down the heretics' fort. Catinat also had 400 ropes with which he intended to hang every one of the traitors. That morning, the 400 Waldensian patriots looked down from their log fortress on La Balsiglia and saw the sun glitter on 22,000 bayonets. It was May 1st, 1690. 3.5 years earlier, in the dead of a severe winter, a terrible slaughter and imprisonment had reduced the numbers of these ancient Christians from 20,000 to less than 3,000. The survivors had fled their homes, farms, livestock, and industries for Protestant Switzerland. But the friendly Swiss could not convince these hardy mountaineers to abandon their ancient lands forever. Under the leadership of a brave Waldensian pastor, Henri Arnaud, 800 men secretly set out in August of 1689 to recapture their territories. For more than 1,000 years before the Reformation, the Waldenses had practiced the simple Christian faith once delivered to the saints and had refused to join the growing apostasy of Christendom headquartered in Rome. Disguised as pearl and silk merchants, they had spread hand-copied portions of the New Testament throughout Europe long before the printing press. For these crimes, they were hunted down and put to horrible deaths. When the Reformation broke over Europe, the Holy Roman Empire redoubled its efforts to drive these and other Protestant sympathizers from her territories. Home to their valleys. As Pastor Arnaud and his 800 brave men made their way over the Alps towards home, they encountered stiff opposition and lost half of their small number. Yet all along the way, the Lord wrought miraculous deliverances and victories for them. Now the 400 survivors would need a safe place to winter and to plan and pray for their next move. La Balsiglia, a natural fortress far up on a mountain where two plunging rivers stood guard on either side, was the perfect spot. The winter days grew shorter and the cold intensified. Between storms, the men felled forest trees and worked them into logs, which they formed into a strong fortress. They prepared spiritually by reciting scripture, singing hymns, and offering daily prayers for divine guidance. As they reviewed God's goodness to them in the past, they knew He would not forsake them in the days ahead. Now as they surveyed Catinat's 22,000 men arrayed below, Pastor Arnaud encouraged his comrades, "Fear them not. Remember, Gideon had only 300 men, so we have 100 more than he did. Let us never forget what he was able to accomplish with the help of God." The indomitable foe prepares. After Catinat had carefully studied the fortress, he remarked to one of his officers, "One day should be sufficient for our army to overwhelm those poorly armed, hungry, unskilled mountaineers." On the morning of May 1st, the French bugles blew early. The Waldenses watched in fascination as Catinat on horseback led the first 500 men, flags and banners waving, to the foot of La Balsiglia. With a tremendous echoing shout, they hurled themselves upon the log reinforcements, but in vain. Ceaseless fire burst from the Waldenses' guns, and the soldiers found the massive tree trunks impassable. Very few of those 500 men returned to their camps safely. Of the Waldenses, not one was killed or wounded. Catinat needed a new plan. Those great trunks must be destroyed. Across the ravine from La Balsiglia was a piece of fairly level ground. Up onto this, the cannons were hauled one by one. In 2 weeks, the cannons were just where Catinat wanted them. This time, he was sure not to fail, and he would soon put his 400 ropes to work. On the morning of May 14th, the French gunners opened fire on the log fortress. All day, a stream of cannonballs poured across the canyon against it. By nightfall, the once stout walls lay in ruins. Catinat determined that the Waldenses should not escape and ordered great fires lighted so that they could not steal away under cover of night. The men in the dark, ruined fortress sent many prayers heavenward that night. God heard and answered them in his own way. The mighty, mysterious mists. About 10 o'clock, the Waldensian warriors noticed mists gathering around the nearby mountain peaks. Eagerly they watched as the fog poured from cliff to cliff, and in a few moments tumbled into the gorge where their enemies were camped, sealing it in complete darkness. Looking down from their ruined fortress, the Waldenses saw not a single fire. But the question remained, could they escape? And if so, where to? Behind them rose cliffs which no man could scale. Captain Poulas, a native of this valley, spoke up. He knew a way over a razor-sharp escarpment leading past the enemy lines. Knowing that their only hope lay in leaving La Balsiglia, Arnaud and his men placed their lives in the hands of this guide. Noiselessly, moving in single file, the men followed Poulas. In many places, they could only advance on hands and knees. In the gloomy fog, they could see but a few feet ahead. Far below, they heard the river rushing over boulders and waterfalls. Years later, when many of them retraced their escape route, they shuddered seeing that any man who tried to go over it, even in daylight, would be risking his life. Down they went toward the river, shielded all the way by the friendly fog. Creeping past the French lines, they heard the soldiers boasting of the glorious victory they would win on the morrow. At the bottom of the gorge, they crossed the stream and began to climb the mountain slope on the far side. Often they stumbled and fell, but they spoke not a word as they climbed higher and even higher, seeking the pass that would take them over and down into the next valley. Foiled. As the morning sun burned away the mists, Catinat marshaled his army and ordered a grand assault. Nearing the ruined fortress, his soldiers raised a mighty shout of victory, expecting every minute to be assailed by men fighting for their lives. But they met no opposition. Scrambling over the ruins, they swarmed into the deserted fort. They looked everywhere, but beheld no enemy. A soldier suddenly pointed upwards. Far up near the summit, they saw a small moving line of black dots. Their prey had escaped. The ropes would not be needed that day. For 3 days the Waldenses marched. When they reached Prat del Tor in the valley of Angrogna, they were surprised to find deputies awaiting them with an offer of peace. Surely God had once again been their refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Psalm 46, verse 1. Betsy Mayer is the managing editor of Last Generation magazine.
Thank you for listening to Last Generation Audio Magazine. For more of our timely and biblical resources, including our print and digital editions, visit our website at lastgen.net and follow us on Facebook and Instagram.